Bonjour and welcome, viewers and students, to Let's Speak French, Parlons Français. These lessons on basic French are short and easy, and if you follow the program regularly, I can guarantee you that very soon you will be able to speak and understand French quite easily. Today, we are going to begin the second unit of the program. This unit is divided into 5 lessons. Today's class will be on the first lesson, which focuses on the 2 most important verbs of the French language, avoir, which means to have, and êtres, which means to be. These 2 verbs are known as les verbes auxiliaires in French. In English, we call them auxiliary verbs. This lesson has been divided into 3 sections. In this first section, I will explain the function of the auxiliary verbs. In the next section, we'll learn how to conjugate the 2 verbs. And in the third section, I'll give you a few common phrases that are formed by these 2 auxiliary verbs. The auxiliary verbs are also known as helping verbs because they help in the conjugation of compound tenses. In French grammar, there are 2 types of tenses, the simple tense and compound tense. As the name suggests, the conjugation of simple tense is simple as it is composed solely of the verb to be conjugated. Let me give you an example of a simple tense. The present tense is a simple tense. Let us consider the verb parler, which means to speak. Tu parles means you speak. As you can see, there are 2 words that compose this phrase, tu and parle. The word tu is the subject doing the action, which is speaking or talking in this case. The word tu is also the subject pronoun you in English. The second word, parle, is the verb that is conjugated. Since this is the present tense, the conjugation of the verb parler in the second person singular form is parle. Let us look at another example. The verb venir, which means to come. Tu viens means you come. As you can see, there are 2 words that compose this phrase, tu and viens. The word tu is the subject doing the action, which in this case is coming. The word tu is also the subject pronoun you in English. The second word vient is the verb that is conjugated. Since this is the present tense, the conjugation of the verb venir in the second person singular form is vient. These 2 examples illustrate what a simple tense is. Let me summarize the concept before proceeding. In a simple tense, only one verb is conjugated. In the examples provided above, the 2 verbs are parler and venir. As you can see, no other verbs are conjugated. Next, let us examine what a compound tense is. Unlike a simple tense, a compound tense has 2 verbs. An example of a compound tense is passé composé, known as compound past in English. Let me explain the concept of a compound tense by conjugating a verb in the compound past tense. Let us again consider the verb parler and conjugate it in the passé composé or compound past tense. Tu as parlé means you have spoken. As you can see, there are three words that compose this phrase: tu, as and parler. The word tu is the subject doing the action, which is speaking or talking in this case. We are not focusing on this part of the phrase. It is the second part which contains the next two words which interests us. The other two words are the two verbs that form the compound past tense. Let us examine these two verbs separately. The second verb, which in this case is parler, is the main verb. This form of the verb parler is known as the past participle. The first verb is the auxiliary verb avoir that helps in the conjugation. The verb avoir has been conjugated in the present tense, second person singular. So you have the verb avoir conjugated in the present tense followed by the past participle of the main verb. Let us see how the verb venir is conjugated in the compound past tense. Tu es venu means you have come. As you can see, there are three words that compose this phrase: tu, es and venu. Once again, we are not concerned with the first part of the phrase that contains the word tu, which is the subject doing the action. It's the second part that interests us. The other two words are the two verbs that form the passé composé. The second verb, which in this case is venu, is the main verb. Venu is the past participle of the verb venir. The verb être has been conjugated in the present tense, second person singular. So you have the verb être conjugated in the present tense followed by the past participle of the main verb. As you can see from these two examples, the compound past is composed of two verbs. The first verb is the auxiliary verb or the helping verb, and the second verb is the main verb that is conjugated. In French, the majority of verbs use the auxiliary verb avoir. These verbs will always use the auxiliary verb for every compound tense, such as plus que parfait, known as plus perfect in English, or futur antérieur, known as future perfect in English. Additional information on the compound tense is provided in the notes. Only a handful of verbs use être as the auxiliary verb. In the second section of this lesson on auxiliary verbs, we will learn how to conjugate the verbs avoir and être in the present tense. Let me underline at this point a slight difference in terminology. The verbs avoir and être are regular verbs which can be conjugated in any tense. And in addition to being regular verbs, they are also auxiliary verbs. This means they help in the conjugation of the verbs by forming the compound tense. Having clarified this point, let me now show you how the verbs avoir and être are conjugated in the present tense. Once you learn their conjugation, you can conjugate any French verb in the compound past tense. Before we can look at the conjugation, let me tell you that in French grammar, there are 8 subject pronouns. Look at the chart to understand what these 8 subject pronouns are and find out their English equivalents. Je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. In the notes, the subject pronouns have been explained in greater detail. Additionally, a few interesting points have been given, such as the omission of it and the other connotations of il. Let us now look at the chart. Je means I, tu means you, il means he, elle means she, nous means we. Vous can have two meanings. Vous can either mean you plural, as in you all, or it can be a formal you, such as when addressing a stranger or someone older. Il and elle both refer to they, but il refers to a group of males, while elle is specifically meant for a group of females. So here are the 8 subject pronouns in French grammar. These 8 subject pronouns are used for the conjugation of almost all the verbs in the French language. 2 important informations concerning this has been included in the notes. Coming back to the subject pronouns in French, let us look at the conjugation of the verb avoir in the present tense. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Let me show you a different chart that includes the English equivalents. J'ai means I have. Tu as means you have. Il a means he has. Elle a means she has. Nous avons means we have. Vous avez can either mean you all have or you have when spoken in a formal situation. Ils ont means they have, where they refers to a group of males. Elles ont means they have, and this time they refers to a group of females. Now let us look at the other auxiliary verb être and see how this verb is conjugated in the present tense. Je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. Let me show you a different chart that includes the English equivalents. Je suis means I am. Tu es means you are. Il est means he is. Elle est means she is. Nous sommes means we are. Vous êtes can either mean you all are or you are when spoken in a formal situation. Ils sont means they are, where they refers to a group of males. Elles sont means they are, and this time they refers to a group of females only. In the third section of this lesson, I will teach you a few idiomatic expressions that are formed by the auxiliary verbs. Let us first look at the phrases that use avoir. Let's begin with a phrase that you have already learnt. When talking about one's age, we use the verb avoir to indicate the age. For example, quel âge as-tu? Which means, how old are you? And the answer to the question is, j'ai 27 ans, which means I am 27 years old. You can also vary the structure of the question, but the verb avoir is still used. For example, Théo a quel âge? Which means, how old is Théo? And the answer would be, Théo a 27 ans, which translates as, Theo is 27 years old. We also use the auxiliary verb avoir when indicating that we are hungry or thirsty. The word for hunger is faim in French. Avoir faim means to be hungry. So when you say tu as faim, it means you are hungry. Let me give you another example. Les enfants ont faim. This sentence means the children are hungry. Les enfants means the children. So les enfants ont faim means the children are hungry. Similarly, when talking about being thirsty, we use the auxiliary verb avoir. For example, the word for thirst is soif in French. Avoir soif means to be thirsty. So when you say vous avez soif means you all are thirsty. Vous avez soif. Let me give you another example. This sentence means the dog is thirsty. Le chien means the dog. So le chien a soif means the dog is thirsty. Le chien a soif. The auxiliary avoir is also used when indicating pain. For example, the word for pain or ache in French is mal. Avoir mal means to have a pain. Nous avons mal au ventre means we have a stomachache. Nous avons mal au ventre. The phrase mal au ventre literally means pain in the stomach, and avoir mal au ventre means to have a stomachache. Let me give you another example. J'ai mal au dos means I have back pain. J'ai mal au dos. A third case where the auxiliary avoir is used in French is when talking about feeling sleepy. For example, the word for sleep is sommeil in French. Avoir sommeil means to feel sleepy. Le bébé a sommeil means the baby is sleepy. Le bébé a sommeil. The word bébé means baby, and therefore le bébé a sommeil means the baby is sleepy. Le bébé a sommeil. Let me give you another example. Jean et Paul ont sommeil. This sentence means that Jean and Paul are sleepy. Jean et Paul ont sommeil. Let me give you two more examples of phrases that use avoir. In French, when talking about feeling hot or cold, one uses the phrase avoir chaud, avoir froid. The word chaud means hot and the word froid means cold. So when you say ils ont chaud, it means they are feeling hot. Ils ont chaud. And when you ask the question, vous avez froid, it translates as, are you feeling cold? Vous avez froid? Next, let me give you some examples of phrases that are formed by the auxiliary verb être. We use the auxiliary verb être when indicating that we are tired. The word for tired in French is fatigué. Être fatigué means to be tired. So when you say tu es fatigué, it means you are tired. Tu es fatigué. Let me give you another example. Hugo est fatigué. This sentence means Hugo is tired. Hugo est fatigué. We also use the auxiliary verb être when indicating that we are unwell. The word for sick is malade in French. Être malade means to be unwell or sick. So when you say Madame Carlier est malade, it means Mrs. Carlier is unwell. Madame Carlier est malade. Let me give you another example. Nous sommes malades. This sentence means we are unwell. Nous sommes malades. The auxiliary être is also used when indicating that one is late. For example, the word for late is retard in French. Être en retard means to be late. Je suis en retard means I am late. Je suis en retard. Let me give you another example. Être en pleine forme means to be physically fit. So when you say tu es en pleine forme, it means you are physically fit. Tu es en pleine forme. So here we have a few idiomatic expressions in French that are formed using the verbs avoir and être. Before we end the lesson, let me summarize today's lessons in a few words. This lesson was divided into 3 parts. In the first part, we learned the functions of the auxiliary verbs. In the second part, we learned how to conjugate the 2 auxiliary verbs. And in the third part, we saw a few idiomatic expressions that are formed by avoir and être. I hope you enjoyed today's session. In the next class, we will learn the definite and indefinite articles of the French language. I hope to see you in the next class. Thank you. À bientôt. See you soon.